Welcome to JWL Sports, where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. Now, you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of anywhere else? And that's because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time. They talk down to us. They think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Take, talking about, I have the hiccups, talking about Steve Wilks being fired. And Stephen A is apparently very angry. What a shocker. I talked about this in my previous video with regards to Colin Cowherd breaking it down. And so I'll be sharing a lot of the same thoughts, but for people who, watch First Take and are interested in Stephen A's opinion, I wanted to break this down as well, because I am also curious to see what Stephen A's reason is, because Colin defended it and I defended it as well. And so I'm just curious to see what Stephen A has to bring to this conversation, if anything fruitful at all. So let's just jump right into it and go from there.
As head coach Kyle Shanahan announced the move to the media yesterday afternoon, the 49ers became the third team to hold Patrick Mahomes below 20 points in regulation in the playoffs. Here's Kyle Shanahan on that move.
He is a great football coach, but just where we're going, where we're at with our team, from a scheme standpoint and things like that, I felt pretty strongly that this was a decision that was best for our organization. I'm committed to trying, with the situation we're in, trying to find what we believe will give the Niners the best chance in 2024. And when you have a group of guys who have played at a high level doing certain things a specific way for a while, I do feel that's the best thing to do for them.
Obviously, just to be clear, Wilks, the former DC, Kyle Shanahan, of course, the head coach. The 49ers were one of the top defenses in the league in the regular season, allowing just 17.5 points per game on 304 yards per game. However, in the postseason, the Niners gave up 8 more points and 100 more yards per game. All right. We bring in two-time Super Bowl champ Damian Woody. Great to see you, sir. Hello, company in NYC. Stephen A., do you think it's a bad look by Shanahan to part ways with Wilks?
A bad look?
Well, I'm going to say this. I think it should be a bad look. I'm disgusted. And my heart goes out to my brother Steve Wilks because he keeps getting screwed over time and time and time again. Arizona, Carolina, here he is in San Francisco. You're there for your first year, 1 year. You have the top 3 ranked defense in the National Football League, okay? Then you get to the postseason, and I get the struggles. He was going against Jordan Love. He was going up against the Detroit Lions team that's loaded offensively, and they came back from a huge deficit and won that NFC Championship game. And correct me if I'm wrong, Woody, even though Patrick Mahomes went down the field, game-time field goal, overtime, game-winning touchdown, I think that San Francisco's defense played pretty damn well. I don't think anybody would deny that collectively over the course of those 60 minutes plus for the Super Bowl, you expected Kansas City's offense to look a little bit better than it did, but Steve Wilks' defense had something to do with them negating that. Here's my whole point. When you are a leader, you have the right to look at your personnel and say, I think we need to go in a different direction. So I'm not trying to fault Shanahan for that. I'm just sick and tired of folks getting certain chances that other people don't get. Kyle Shanahan has been an offensive coordinator in 3 Super Bowls. All 3, he's had double-digit leads. All 3, he's lost. Now, 1 was as the offensive coordinator. Why do I hold him accountable for that? Because you were up 28-3. You were up 25 points. And what you needed to do was primarily run the football, not throw the football, so Matt Ryan wouldn't be throwing incomplete passes that would stop the clock and give Tom Brady and those boys more bites at the apple. You didn't do it. You became a head coach. Years later, you got a 10-point lead in the 4th quarter. You get outscored 21-0 by Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Steve Wilks wasn't your defensive coordinator then, okay? But somebody else is gone, but you still there. Now we fast forward to a few years later, and once again, you got a double-digit lead in the Super Bowl, okay? You've got a team that spent $50 7+ minutes holding the Kansas City Chiefs to under 20 points, and you still can't win a game. But
So this is where Stephen A is being insincere and being dishonest, either on purpose or or just his own ignorance, I guess, because Shanahan, first of all, that was his first time in the Super Bowl, not being an OC. We can't hold. Well, I'm not going to hold his feet to the fire in that regard. Was it a mistake? Absolutely, but this was the beginning of his career in that regard. Okay, it took Andy Reid a decade and a half or whatever longer to win a Super Bowl, and now we consider him to be one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the NFL. So to hold someone to their feet to the fire in that situation is just not fair. Now go to the next Super Bowl where he had the lead. He had Jimmy Garoppolo, who has proven to not be that great of a quarterback, and he lost to the Patrick Mahomes, who Stephen A says is either the GOAT or about to be the GOAT. So if that's the case, why is that now Shanahan's fault? And now in this Super Bowl I've called Shanahan out for his mistakes and his errors in that game about abandoning the run and doing some of these other things and taking the ball first at overtime. But was it Shanahan's fault that Christian McCaffrey fumbled the ball? Was it Shanahan's fault that the punt fumble happened? Was it Shanahan's fault for the missed extra point? No, it wasn't Shanahan's fault for any of those things. Was it Shanahan's fault that Greenlaw got injured? No. So this idea that Shanahan is to blame when we know how brilliant he is flawed, just like Sean McVay is and was before he won his Super Bowl, just like Andy Reid is and was. All of these flaws take place, but the difference is that the benefits, those pros, outweigh the cons. Not to mention, he's doing it with, whether you think Brock Purdy's the best quarterback ever or just a mediocre quarterback, he's not Patrick Mahomes. So imagine if Shanahan now was able to link up with a Tom Brady, a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow. He would be even more amazing, because we saw what Sean McVay did with Goff, and then you gave him Stafford, and the guy went and won a Super Bowl. So we know the power and the abilities of these offensive head coaches. Again, Andy Reid, we saw what he was able to do with like a Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Alex Smith, and then he got a Patrick Mahomes, and it was transcendent. Okay? Coaches matter. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're saying, okay, but like, why is this Wilks' fault then? It wasn't Wilks' fault for the fumble. It wasn't Wilks' fault for all the things that you mentioned. And that's 100% true. But this idea that, oh, he played so good against Patrick Mahomes is just not necessarily seriously that true, because this offense, the Chiefs' offense was never that great. They were averaging like 19 points a game or something. I forget what the exact is, but they were not averaging a lot of points. Okay? They were not doing well. The Eagles held them under. The Packers, the Bills, the one game. I mean, like, this was not that great of an offense. And that was the biggest issue that people were saying. Patrick Mahomes did not have a great season by no stretch of the imagination. Look at the numbers. Okay? So this idea that was so impressive, you did what you were supposed to do. And in fact, their offense, the Chiefs' offense, struggled pretty much all season. If you're now going up against a really good defense, then they should be even better. Then you hold the Chiefs to 14 points. And again, the Greenlaw injury was devastating. It was. When you looked at the numbers of who filled in for him and what happened, I mean, it was just, they just completely exploited that, right? And that's not necessarily Wilks' fault. But at the same time, Wilks made some key mistakes in the Super Bowl that really infuriated Shanahan. Shanahan had to burn a timeout for it. We even saw the moment when Romo was like, no, what are you doing? Why are you blitzing in this situation? And whether you agree with it or not, I agree with Romo's reaction, honestly. And you could see like it hurt Romo, because the way how he saw it was like, this is such a dumb move. Like, what are you doing? And you kind of saw that in the playoffs with the 49ers. I mean, Detroit is a good team and had a fiery offense, but the Cowboys played better. Their defense played better against the Detroit Lions. And the 49ers got gashed on defense. So that's like back-to-back games with very clear mistakes and issues when it mattered most. And again, the 49ers had one of the better defenses, but they didn't have like the toughest schedule. When you really look at all the games that they beat and the teams that they blew out, I mean, it was hardly that special. This was a very unique year where there was a lot of bad teams or a lot of injured teams or a lot of teams that just completely collapsed. This wasn't really like a great start to finish year where teams were just built, ready to go, let's go, and staying healthy. So I think the stats are a little misleading in terms of like the rankings of the best defense. You know, the Dolphins looked like they had one of the greatest, most historic offenses ever. No one really thinks that, right? When you really think about it and look at it, what offense would you rather have, the 49ers or the Dolphins? The Chiefs or the Dolphins, honestly. You know, what can actually handle and compose themselves in the playoffs? The Chiefs, you know? So this idea that Wilks was just great and perfect and everything's all good and now he just got fired because they lost and this is on Shanahan and now he's looking for a scapegoat. Yes, when you are the leader, you get to point fingers a little more, but Shanahan has gotten a ton of blame, and people were calling for his head. But from my viewpoint, Shanahan has deserved to stay and to not be fired because he's obviously an amazing bona fide head coach. He absolutely is. And you're yet to really see Shanahan with a true bona fide number one quarterback. I think Purdy's a really good quarterback and has potential to be even better than he is. But again, he's not Peyton Manning. He's not Tom Brady. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not Josh Allen. He's not those things. And we've seen all the great elite coaches need those great elite big boy quarterbacks. And Brock Purdy just has not been that just yet. But what Shanahan has been able to build is pretty remarkable and pretty amazing. So to just say like, well, listen, he needs to deserves even more culpability than he's already gotten, because I think he's gotten a ton of blame. And I think if he has another bad loss in the Super Bowl, people will legitimately be fighting for his head. But when you're as good as Shanahan, you get second chances, third chances, fourth chances, fifth chances. You just do. Andy Reid got him, and rightfully so. And Andy Reid, again, is now considered to be the best coach ever. One of the best coaches ever. And with Wilks, he did not earn that right necessarily. And that's just the reality. Not to mention, sometimes it's more than just the numbers. Sometimes it's also just personality. Sometimes the personalities just don't mesh. And Shanahan clearly was not liking what he saw out of Steve Wilks. And if he thought that Steve Wilks put his team in the best position to win, he would keep him. He's not just firing him for the sake of firing him, you know, because that moment has already passed in a lot of ways. So this idea that like he's just either firing him to take off heat off himself, I don't believe that, because his job is secure. He's not trying to skirt responsibility either. So if he thought firing Steve Wilks actually put his team in a deficit, he wouldn't do it because he wants to win. That's the one thing that you can absolutely guarantee, is that Shanahan wants to win. So by him firing Steve Wilks, it's because he reached a conclusion, probably by looking at his own personnel, looking at himself, looking at how, you know, the games, you know, unfolded, not just the Super Bowl, but the Detroit Lions game, the Packers game, any of the regular season games, you know, looked at all of that, probably had conversations with the bosses of the world, of the team, not of the world, of the team, and then reached the conclusion of saying, okay, because Bosa came out and he didn't call out Steve Wilks directly, but the statements that he made were not positive reflections on Steve Wilks. And if Bosa's making those types of statements, there's reason to believe that other defensive players on the team were not happy with Steve Wilks. And if that's the case, it's something that you just cut right away and you try to fix. That's what it really comes down to. But what do you guys all think? Do you think Steve Wilks shouldn't have been fired? Do you think Stephen A is totally on point with the points that he's made, that it's a disgusting and a disgrace? Let me know in the comments below. Would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on this one. Please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.